Hello folks and welcome to the paddock here at the Autodromo di Monza for F1 Live, your post-race show. Will Buxton and Pietro Fittipaldi at the end of an astonishing day's racing. Because at the halfway point of this race, it looked for all the world like Lewis Hamilton was marching to another win. Then a catastrophic blunder by the Mercedes team, a red flag, and an incredible end to this race featuring the first ever restart from the grid in Formula One history has seen Pierre Gasly take the win for AlphaTauri on a day when, well, really, it seemed like anything could happen. Pietro, what a race.
I mean, by far, for me, one of the most exciting races I've ever seen. I think last year in Germany, I thought that one was the most exciting I've ever seen, but this one tops it by far. The red flag, the then standing restart after. Just an amazing race. After the first 10, 15 laps, I thought the race was not over, but I thought, you know, Hamilton was going to win if he didn't have any reliability issues, and then everything just turned around. I mean, what a race.
And turn around, it really did. The classification at the end of the race, and it is not a podium you would have expected to see, because Pierre Gasly, P1, deservedly so, with an amazing race win. He was 3 months old the last time a French driver won a Grand Prix. It was Olivier Panis in '96. Then Sainz second, Lance Stroll third. What a podium. All three of them up there. Brilliant stuff. Norris fourth, Valtteri Bottas fifth. Boy, will you have to pick apart the Mercedes day today. Daniel Ricciardo P6 disappointed there. Hamilton seventh. Ocon 8th, Kvyat 9th, and Sergio Perez in 10th. Hamilton with the fastest lap. We'll tell you why in a moment. Behind them all out of the points on a day when anything could have happened. Latifi and Grosjean, Raikkonen and Russell, Albon and Giovinazzi, Verstappen, Leclerc and Vettel, and Magnussen not seeing the end of the race. And despite a day when neither Ferrari saw the checkered flag, the Italian national anthem played on top of that podium for Pierre Gasly, for AlphaTauri. That's 2 wins here at Monza for the team now, once as Toro Rosso, once as AlphaTauri, and those last laps with Carlos trying to catch Pierre, and Pierre with no tyres left, somehow holding him behind. It was a brilliant race.
Man, I was watching that. He must have been doing pole position laps after pole position laps. I mean, this race, you know, can change his life, you know, if he got the win, and he did. So he must be, he was absolutely pushing the limits, and just at the end, Carlos got the DRS in the last lap, but he was just far enough to be able to take the win.
And here is the final lap. Carlos Sainz giving it everything down there into turn 1, and it had been the gap about 1.5 seconds, down to 1.3, down to 1.1, and then here we were, 7, 8 tenths, DRS engaged, and as you say, Carlos giving it everything. And as Pierre tries to put the gas down, you see the car squirm around. It's just, there's nothing left.
No, because they changed tires just at the red flag. After the red flag, they did the whole race on the same set of tires. I mean, like I said, he knows he can win. He knows he has a chance to win, and he's pushing every single lap as it's a pole lap. So for sure, his tires by the end were almost finished, but it was just enough for him to hold on, and what an amazing race.
An incredible run from him. Sainz then through that back stretch and trying to get Gasly through the Ascari chicane, and by now you think you've got one run left. You've got one go on DRS, but Gasly, as he had been doing for the last couple of laps, just broke the toe, kept him away.
Yeah, he just broke it. He was doing, you know, he was weaving down the straights a little bit just to break that toe, just so that, you know, he doesn't get that, Sainz doesn't get that vacuum to really gain a lot on him, and he was able to hold it off. I mean, you know, Sainz was catching up 1, 2 tenths a lap every lap, and Gasly, yeah, held it off.
Amazing stuff. And by the time he exits that corner, he knows the win is his. Got Romain Grosjean down here with us, not points today, man, and I know on a day when anything could have happened. A difficult race, though, for you.
Yeah, I think everything happened, but we just, you know, we're just too slow. So everything happened, so we finished 12th, which is not bad in Monza with what we have. I mean, we won the Ferrari Challenge, so that's the best we can hope at the minute.
That's it.
And Pierre won, so what else?
Well, here we go. Pierre did win. It's the first time since 1996 that a Frenchman has won a Grand Prix. Yeah. He's been through hell and back. You know him so well. We saw you congratulating him. What does this mean for him, for France?
I mean, for him, it's what you dream of when you're a child. You know, winning your first race, and obviously you won the championship after that. But it's incredible for France. It's an absolutely amazing day. You know, 1996 May, Olivier Panis Monaco, we remember? No, it's Pierre Gasly, 2020 Monza.
Fantastic stuff. Romain, thanks for coming on, man. Better luck next time, and well done on winning the Ferrari Challenge. Take the small victories, Romain Grosjean there. It's making us all feel a little bit old, isn't it? Oh, Ed, come and get this down here. Carlos coming through with a P2, and an absolutely phenomenal job from him today, of course, as we saw. Brilliant job from Carlos Sainz today. And up at the top here, Pierre Gasly just being congratulated by his team. Hello, Daniel. Hello. Come and jump in, my man. We've got an awful lot going on behind us today. It was quite the day, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy with the race. You know, I'm not obviously ecstatic with the result. You know, we didn't have the circumstances fall in our favour today, but we weren't the only ones. You know, there was a few others as well who got hurt by that safety car and red flag. So I don't want to scream and shout, poor me. It was what it was. You know, these things happen. But I'm happy. We did the best race we could. Start was fun, made positions, held on, and then hung with Valtteri at the end. We just didn't have enough to get him.
So you say you didn't have enough, and I want to ask this because obviously the engine modes all changed for this weekend. Did it mean that you lacked that ability to push, to fight? Because it seemed that while we might have been expecting a slipstreaming battle between everybody, it stayed very sort of status quo-y for a bit.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how much is down to the modes for that. I think it's one of those ones now. You know, the corners leading onto the straight are so fast, and because the cars now are so fast, it's really hard to stay close. You know, through Ascari, then Parabolica. You really need a bit of a slip up from the car in front to latch onto a good DRS. I think it's just the pace we're running. So, yeah, I know that the results are crazy. I'm not sure how much on-track passing there was, but I think it's a good race for the sport. Obviously, Pierre's the one that got it done.
And he's
today.
a guy you know well, of course, through the Red Bull program. What is this going to mean to him?
Yeah, I mean it's first win in Formula One. It's huge. Yeah, I mean, and I think on a race, I mean, yeah, I can relate a little bit. The first win as well was a crazy race, and your emotions are all over the place. And you know, having a red flag's not easy. You know, mentally to kind of calm yourself, switch back on, and yeah, it's tough. So even whether he had circumstances in his favour or not, for him to hang on, hats off to him.
Great job today, man. Great drive. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Daniel, for coming on. Appreciate it as always, man. Great stuff. Thanks, dude. Daniel makes a very good point there, of course, which was that the red flag, which came halfway through that race, has the capability to throw racing drivers off their game, as you know, only too well. How do you, as a racing driver in that situation, just keep it locked in, keep yourself focused so that when you go back out again, and particularly this time, it's not a rolling start, first time in F1 history that they're back on the grid, reset, restart.
Yeah, first I think the standing start's an amazing idea because it shakes things up. It's like having a stage 1 and then a stage 2 of the race, you know? So for sure that makes it a lot more exciting. As a driver, like you said, the red flag, it can really throw you off because you're racing, you're in race mode, you stop. You're under red flag for you don't know how long, 10, 20, 30 minutes. So for sure you kind of lose that edge that you have to keep focused, know that there's still half of the race to go. So you saw different drivers doing different things. I think I saw Sainz, it was one of the McLarens that he stayed in the car. Some drivers got out. I saw Hamilton getting out, he was in his scooter.
Well, he went to see the stewards.
Yeah, so you see different drivers had just different ways to handle it. But at the end of the day, it's whatever keeps you focused, you know?
Well, Lewis Hamilton definitely lost his focus there. He went to see the stewards because what had happened during the race was we'd had Sebastian Vettel retire already. Then Kevin Magnussen, your teammate, retired on pit in. At that moment, Lewis Hamilton took the decision to come into the pits as the safety car was called out. However, the pit lane at that moment was closed because Kevin's car was on pit entry. Now, that message went out on the screens when Lewis was around about, I think, the second chicane. But he came in, the pit lane was closed, so did Antonio Giovinazzi, and both were then handed a 10-second stop-go penalty, which they had to serve on the restart, and Lewis wasn't happy about that. But the rules are clear.
Yeah, I mean, the rules are the rules. I find it hard to understand how they, I find it, you see, there's the light there. Usually there's also a red light. Yeah, there's also a pit lane light coming in, and there isn't one here in Monza. I don't know how many other tracks don't have it on pit entry, but obviously they have the light on the outside of the track, which honestly, as a driver, it's a little bit hard to see. But did the team tell him to box?
They did.
If the team tells you to box, you listen to the team, you know, I mean, that's...
I believe they did. I'm pretty confident they did. And you know, at that point, when that message comes up on the screen, pit lane closed, well, is it on the team? Is it on you as a driver to notice that it's closed if the decision is taken to come in?
The lights, they were hard to see. If they're on the outside of the track, you're focused on pit entry, it's hard to see. There's no light coming in. And if the team tells you to box, you follow what the team says, because they have the instructions in front of them. You don't, Yeah. That's my opinion as a driver.
Well, as I say, I'm not sure if Lewis was called in or if he took the decision on his own. If he was called in, it seems like a big blunder from Mercedes, because it did hand the advantage to everybody else. And in the pit lane, at that point, you are enabled to change parts of the car. You can change tyres, do all of those kind of things. But in order to get us up to that point, we had a pretty exciting first half of the race. In the studio, Rosanna Tennant and Sam Collins. Guys, it was an astonishing race up to that point, and it all looked like it was going Lewis Hamilton's way.
Good afternoon, Will. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, we have rewound, my goodness, I put my teeth in, right to the back of the first race, shall we call it, the first race start. Let's talk about Valtteri Bottas, because at that point, that was the big talking point. What happened to Valtteri off the start?
Well, it was a little bit just before this race start. You can see him getting away from the line terribly on the screen there, and he was already being mugged by a McLaren and then being mugged by a Racing Point almost, and he just seemed to fade. And from that point, he just wasn't competitive, and I wasn't sure why, but he locked up on the way to the grid, which we talked about in the pre-race show, and I wondered if that tyre damage had hurt him in the first stint. But even after this, in the second part of the race, the car just seemed to have no pace, and we heard Valtteri get on the radio and say, "I can't race in this engine mode." And I think that's something that we'll talk about a little bit later. I've got a theory as to why that was, and we'll see a little bit more later in the show as to why that was. But I think there was an issue with that Mercedes, and I think Hamilton also suffered from the same issue in the second half of the race.
And you've spoken about Lewis potentially suffering from something to do with the engine back in Spa. Do you think these two things are connected?
Potentially, I don't think so, but I do think there was some issue with Hamilton's engine in Spa, and it's hard with these single engine modes that we've introduced for this race to really be certain if there's an engine problem. I was looking at the RPMs on both cars through the races, didn't see anything weird, but you're hearing those radio messages, and Valtteri really wasn't happy off the start and in the opening section of that race, and it didn't get much better actually as the race went on.
No, it certainly didn't. You talked about the McLarens, of course, they had a really good start. What do you put that down to?
The car's just the McLaren with that Renault power unit is working really, really well here at Monza. The car is super quick in a straight line. It works brilliantly in Sector 1 and Sector 3. It's very fast in that straight line speed, and the drivers just seem to have found the sweet spot with that car. Not just here, we saw the same in Spa, and I suspect we'll see something similar in Bahrain later in the year. That McLaren works well at high speed.
Well, someone who didn't find the sweet spot was Max Verstappen. Not a great start for him, something that we've seen previously this season, and then being wheeled back into the garage with that engine issue. Not a great day for Red Bull. Was it just the fact that this circuit doesn't really suit them?
Monza's never really been a very Red Bull circuit. They've liked the low-speed Hungaroring style circuits traditionally, and I think they really struggled here. And just getting off the line, you see Max Verstappen really just couldn't get the power down. He's had a few fluffed starts this year as well, and this is just the latest in that sort of progression of failed starts. And I just don't think that Red Bull gets off the line at all well, but also by slimming it out, as we heard Will say in the pre-race show, the handling went with that. So the cars weren't handling, they didn't start well, and he just struggled in all of these. He had a lot of good battles, as Max Verstappen always does, there with the Racing Point. Very lucky not to do damage in the first chicane. And I just really think that Red Bull, they just hate these high-speed circuits. And so they're the opposite of McLaren.
Well, of course, you have to add into that, of course, Vettel pulling out of the race with brake issues, Magnussen having a problem, and Charles Leclerc running into the tyres at the Parabolica, bringing us right up to the red flag, which we will analyse a little later on in the show, Will. Whew.
Thanks so much, guys. Wonderful stuff. Now you join us back in the paddock, and sadly, for the last time, well, let's just say for the moment, anyway.
Last time.
Let's say for the moment. Claire Williams, what an emotional day for Williams, for you, and you got to wave your boys out of the garage.
Yeah, I've had the most extraordinary day. I'm not going to say the greatest day because it's obviously so tinged with sadness for me and for our family, but we've had the best time in Formula One, and our team have totally spoilt me today. They've done so many wonderful things that I will carry with me forever and treasure. So I'm just going to enjoy the moment, I think.
And obviously you had a little mini celebration this morning. How meaningful was it to have your mother's logo being carried today as well?
Yeah, I mean, Mum's logo's been on the car ever since she passed away. We're going to be taking that with us. I think if the Williams family are leaving, we've made the decision that we should take our mum with us as well, rather than leave her behind. We're all leaving, and that's
Don't
important.
set me off. Yeah, we've got a little bit of radio from George Russell coming up, because I know it's an emotional day for everybody here, particularly for you, of course. It was a lovely piece of radio.
It was. Are you listening to it now? Is that?
I think we're throwing to it now.
Yeah.
You
hope.
I just had to take this opportunity to say to Claire and Frank, thank you so much for everything you've done for me, for the whole team. It's going to be a shame to see you leave. We'll really miss you, and just thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I think George's emotions are the kind of emotions that
Claire,
are said by everybody.
I'm sure you're going through a world of emotions right now.
Then you might have
I
mine.
just wanted to say one last time, thank you for everything you've done for me, for giving me this opportunity. I know I'm going to miss you. F1 is going to miss you. Just be sure that we'll keep pushing 100% to bring the Williams name back to where it belongs. Wishing you, Mark, Nate, the best in wherever life takes you next. Thank you. Thank you.
Big emotions from your drivers, big emotions from everybody. This team, your family, has been a part of this sport for as long as the vast majority of us working here or as fans of it can remember. It's been a part of your life for your entire life. What does this team mean to you, and how much will you miss it?
My God, I mean, the team means everything to me. It's been my whole life, and it's who I am, who we all are as a family. It's been the focal point for our family. Dad was never one of those people that left his work in the office. It was, what we all discussed around the dinner table in the evenings, and so it has been such an integral part of our lives. But we've given also so much to this sport, and so I think that's why we feel now you've got to stop at some time, haven't you? We've had a great time in this sport. It's given us so much. We've always felt so privileged to have been part of it. I still pinch myself every day, and I'm 44, that I was born a Williams, and that I was brought up in this incredible world. And I think sometimes we can forget how incredible this life is that we all get to live in, that we all get, my dad always said, isn't it magical, Claire, that we get paid to do something we love? So many people don't get to say that in their lives, and we should never forget that, and we should never forget that this sport is incredible, and it does give us all so much. We all love it. So it's going to probably be pretty brutal when I wake up at home on Tuesday morning and realise that it's no longer our world, but I also know that it will be nice to go out and see what the real world is all about, because apparently there is one out there, and people tell me it's incredible too. So
Claire, thank you for everything. Going to miss you, not just on pub nights and
yes,
media breakfasts and those every day. Thank you for all you've done, all you've been. I'll stop. You go, otherwise I'll go.
Okay. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, Claire. Thank you so much. An amazing history in the sport for Williams and for Claire. Someone who's making his own history in the sport, Lando Norris. What a battling day, man.
Was that history?
Huh?
Was that history?
I was saying you're making your own history. You're
right.
carving out, you're writing your pages in your book. And another battling day. Could so much have been a podium today, man?
I don't know. It could have been, but I don't think anything that we did took away the podium. I think we did a perfect race from our side with our strategy when we boxed and everything. My pace in the beginning and opening the right gap to Sergio, who was behind. So, yeah, I don't know. I was very happy with what the team did, what I did. The only thing we lost out on was Stroll boxing for free and not having any penalty in terms of a pit stop time. But yeah, that's the only way we lost out of it. It's the only way they got the podium. But it's a shame because, like you said, I think we could have been on the podium today. We could have had 2 McLaren drivers up there and the whole team there. But yeah, just didn't work out.
Did you find it a bit different after the red flag having a standing start?
I mean, it's the
compared to a
first
normal
time we've
start?
done it. I think it's one of the first times we've done it
The
ever.
first time.
First time, yeah.
So it was weird because, you know, we're on a harder tyre, a lot less fuel, so the start's a lot more difficult. You wouldn't have thought that. You would have thought less fuel, better start, but it's the opposite. So I was a bit safe, and my start wasn't as perfect on the second one as it was on the first one, but it's cool. I think it makes a bit more action go on rather than everyone going single file, especially with the rule now that you can't overtake until the line, which is the start-finish line, comparing to the safety car line. So everyone's a little bit more hesitant, and it doesn't cause as much action nowadays. So doing something like this, I think, was good for the sport.
One question I got to ask before we go. It's a rule you've just mentioned about the fact that Lance essentially got a free pit stop in the pits. It's not a rule I like, I've got to be honest. The whole
I don't think anyone likes it apart from Stroll right now.
Do you want to see that rule eradicated?
Oh, 100%. I think, look, you gain and you lose in some cases, and like Pierre was, you know, Pierre boxed before, he was in a good position, and you can't do anything about that. That's just luck of the draw. But with Stroll's one, they just, you know, he should still have to pit after. Sometimes you get unlucky, and he should have been unlucky rather than lucky. And, you know, you need to be doing a pit stop, not just a tyre change when you don't lose anything. And it's one mandatory pit stop in terms of you have to use 2 different compounds, and he did, but at the same time, I don't know, I guess I'm saying I hate it right now because I lost out to it. If I was in Stroll's shoes, I would think it's the best rule ever. So it's the way it is. But yeah, I think in hindsight and looking ahead, whether I lose or gain from it in the future, I think it's a rule that needs to be taken away.
Thanks, Lando. Appreciate you coming on, man. Good job today. Cheers. Right. Well, a great day for McLaren. Obviously, one car on the podium, another strong point. A terrible day, though, for the team bedecked in red. A homecoming to Monza is supposed to be a joyous occasion for Ferrari. Today, it was a living nightmare. First up, Sebastian Vettel. Brake failure curtailing his race. But at least the Tifosi weren't here to boo them.
Hey, Sebastian. I'm really sorry to see you here before the race has ended. When did you realise the brakes were going?
A couple laps before, we already ran into trouble. I didn't think that they would fail, but yeah, we have a look. There must have been something else going on.
How frustrating is it? It's obviously been a tough weekend overall.
Mega frustrating, obviously. I don't know what to say. You're not even in the car, you don't even have the chance to do anything, so yeah, obviously a tough day.
You've never had such a tough time.
I can't hear, sorry.
You've never had such a tough time like this in your career. How are you coping with it?
You know, tough times are part of life and part of sports, but at the moment I think it's not fair to, you know, all the guys that put so much effort in that we are that bad. But on the other hand, it's a testimony of where we stand, and it's poor, obviously, where we are, especially here for our home race. I think it's probably a blessing that there's nobody on the stands.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Now, we were going to roll into the other Ferrari interviews today, but we won't because we have a very special guest. Franz Tost, what a phenomenal day for your team. 12 years on from Sebastian's famous win here for you guys. Pierre did the job today. Even under the mask, I can see that smile.
Yeah, it must be, because it's fantastic. We are here in Monza once more on the podium, in the middle of the podium. And I must say that from Friday onwards, we were always very competitive. And we decided then at the end to go out with a little gurney more, to have downforce also in the second sector, and to reduce the tire degradation. And it paid off because McLaren was out with less swing. They were very fast in the first sector, but in the second sector they lost. And if you are behind in the second sector, it's difficult to catch up in the DRS zones and to overtake. And this worked. And the team did a fantastic call for Pierre, bringing him in just one lap before the safety car. And then the red flag helped, and the penalty against Hamilton as well. Also, we were lucky, like 12 years ago when it was raining, but we won, and we were there.
But we all know in this game you make your own luck at times. He pitted at just the right time before the red flag came out anyway, and we'd seen how fast the car was on hards in Spa here as well. As you say, the car had been quick all the way through the weekend, top 5 pace throughout. And Pierre, a word for him, because he's not had the easiest of times. You've taken him, you've given him that confidence back, and he's repaid you.
Yeah. No, I must say, when Pierre came back last year, I was really happy And when he came into my office, I said to him, hey, Gent, this is like he was here yesterday. He felt immediately familiar, A, with the team, B, with the car, and then he showed a good performance. As we know, when he finished second in Sao Paulo, was also a good fight against Hamilton without any mistake from his side. And today he drove a real good race from the start onwards. When Hamilton had to come in, he was in fresh air, and he took this advantage and he controlled the distance to Carlos Sainz. It was always 1.2 to 1.5 seconds. When Carlos closed a little bit the gap, he immediately was faster in sector 2 to show him, hey, Chen, stay behind me. Today it's my day, and this was good.
It was phenomenal. Franz, I'm going to let you go and celebrate with the team. You're like a virtual high five, and great job today. Absolutely amazing.
We don't celebrate, we don't have time, we go to Mugello.
That's you've got to go straight to Mugello, of course. Enjoy a virtual high five. We can't do that. What a great job. What a great job from that team, and you can see how much it means to them.
No, it means a lot. I mean, a win for this team. It's been 12 years since they won. They won here at Monza as well with Sebastian Vettel. Like he said, yeah, we were lucky, but sometimes in life, you have to be lucky, and they really capitalized it. They capitalized on the luck today. It was on their side, and the team did an amazing job. Pierre drove unbelievable race. I mean, he was just putting in laps, and like he said, Sector 1, they always struggled a bit. Sainz was behind him. He was always, when I was looking, 3-4 tenths quicker in Sector 1. Sector 2, he was able to always open up 2-3 tenths from Sainz, and that was just enough to keep him out of the DRS range until the last lap.
Absolutely incredible. So at least the Italian national anthem played on the podium today, but it wasn't for the team that the fans, had they been here, would have hoped for. That would instead have been Ferrari, and after Sebastian Vettel's retirement, well, once the safety car pulled in before that red flag, Charles Leclerc had a massive moment down at the Parabolica. His race ended in the tyres. Thankfully, he's okay. He caught up with Lawrence Barretto after returning from the medical centre.
Charles, that was a pretty big hit. Firstly, are you okay?
Yeah, a bit of pain here and there, but overall okay. Thank you very much.
So what happened?
I've lost the rear, as simple as that, so it's my mistake. Surely before that it was definitely not an easy race, very difficult if anything, struggling quite a lot with the balance. Very, very hard to drive, but it's life at the moment, and we'll try to push hard for Mugello to come back stronger, but I've just lost the rear, and that's it.
The second successive difficult weekend for Ferrari, how challenging is that for you to accept?
It is difficult, but today I'm more thankful to get out of the car without major issues. So surely it's a difficult moment, but I'm looking forward to Mugello to get back and hopefully have a good result.
All right, good luck for Mugello. Thank you.
Yeah, disappointing weekend, of course, for Charles Leclerc. Measure of the man, though, that as Pierre Gasly pulled into Parc Fermé, one of the first people there to celebrate with him was Charles. They've been through so much together. I saw Charles a couple of moments ago, and he just said, I just had to go and see him. Like, he's so happy, and I'm so happy for him. It was just lovely, lovely to see. At the end, though, of a difficult weekend for Scuderia Ferrari, the team principal, Mattia Binotto. Team bosses don't often come down to the pen at the end of a Grand Prix, but Mattia, feeling he had some explaining to do, came down to talk to the press.
Mattia, firstly, good news that Charles is okay, but this was obviously not the afternoon that you wanted.
Yeah, certainly Charles is okay, that's very important, no doubt. Seb is okay as well, because finally he got a reliability problem on the braking system, which in Monza is very bad, very disappointing, I think, from us. But yeah, obviously this is the worst conclusion of a difficult weekend, and we knew that Monza would have been difficult after Spa, but not finishing a race, it's even worse. So we just need now to look forward and making sure this is a lesson learned, and that the team may become stronger in the future.
I know there are no fans here, but how much does it hurt to have this happen at Monza on your home circuit?
Quanto dà fastidio, quanto fa male?
Yeah, certainly it's difficult. It's bad. Monza, Italian Grand Prix. It's a circuit. It's the temple of the speed. I think that for us it's always important to make sure that we are performing well here, because it's our home circuit, Italian Grand Prix. So it's bad, but I think even more bad is the way we concluded the weekend.
How worried are you about the rest of the season?
I think now we will have different types of circuits, characteristic of circuits in the future. Already in a week time we've got Mugello, which is an important milestone for us, still in Italy. I think it's important to prepare well for there. It will be a different type of circuit to Spa and Monza. I think it's important for us to understand where will be our competitiveness on such a circuit after the last races.
Thank you.
Very interesting words from Mattia Binotto, of course. Another home race for them next weekend at Mugello for the 1000th Ferrari anniversary race. We move on, though, to what happened because of that big crash for Charles Leclerc. The red flag came out. The cars poured into the pit lane, Rosanna Tennant and Sam Collins, and it really changed the entire nature of this Italian Grand Prix.
It certainly did, and it also gave teams different activities to partake in or choose not to. And of course, we saw Lance Stroll choosing to change his tyres. What did you make of that decision to use that time?
I think that sent a lot of people diving into the FIA sporting regulations. Now, under a red flag, it's not a regulation I particularly like. I think it's a bit of a rubbish regulation. You are allowed to change your tyres in red flag conditions, which means Lance Stroll, who'd stayed out under the safety car, then essentially inherited the race lead off the start line because Hamilton had already got that penalty. And he could change tyres without a pit stop. And that, you can hear some of the comments from drivers. They're not too happy about Lance being able to come into the pits, have a free pit stop essentially, and come out and carry on racing. And I think those rules are just not the right rules for Formula One at the moment. And I don't think they thought about it in this scenario because it's been so long since we've had a long red flag like this.
And we also saw the Mercedes team going to work on both cars, both Valtteri and Lewis's cars, just working on the bodywork, taking it off, making some changes. What were they doing there?
Yeah, this again I literally had to dive into the sporting regulations for this. As you see, the FIA were down there looking at the different panels they wanted to swap out. Now, what Mercedes had noticed is in the technical and sporting regulations, you're allowed under a red flag to change the radiator ducts of the cars. Now, they've really stretched the definition of what a radiator duct actually is. So it's all that rear bodywork, basically anything associated with the cooling of the rear of the car, they were allowed to change. So they changed it on both Bottas's car and Hamilton's car. So they stripped out the back of the cars and put all the bodywork back on opened up to cooling because they realised both Bottas and Hamilton were then going to have to run in traffic. And that team, I think, are really, really worried about the cooling of the power unit on those cars.
So that could have been linked to some of the problems that Valtteri was already encountering earlier on.
I think that's exactly what caused the problems that Valtteri was talking about on the radio. So he got on early in the race, he sent that radio message saying, I can't race in this mode, because he couldn't push the power unit as hard as he'd like to. And what he'd really like to have done is change engine mode to put it into a mode that works in a slightly cooler way. You can change the spark and just create the engine mode that wouldn't run so hot. And he wasn't able to do that. And he was in traffic trying to race with these guys while managing a power unit that was getting far too toasty. And Hamilton ended up with the same problem when he was going through the traffic. And I think that's why he couldn't go back through. And this was the party never ends. Well, party mode, which they are sort of racing in now, didn't work for them in the Italian Grand Prix.
Well, lots going on in the pit lane, as always, under a red flag. Lots to talk about there. A little bit of analysis there on what the Mercedes team were doing. We don't think there'll be any penalties. Of course, the FIA there talking to the chief mechanic and to the engineers. So hopefully there won't be any repercussions for the Mercedes team, Will.
Yeah, it looks like it was all done under the watchful eye of the FIA and Joe Bauer. And as we've heard, as you guys were saying, from Lando earlier, and I'm sure from other drivers as well, Lance kind of getting that free pit stop under the red flags. What do you make of that rule?
Yeah, it's an annoying rule because the guys who haven't pitted, now they have an advantage. As soon as there's a red flag, you're able to put new tires on. So basically everyone has new tires. So for sure, the people who pitted before are at a disadvantage. So yeah, I think it's a rule that shouldn't be there, to be honest, but it's the way it is.
For me, it kind of sits along the same level as when the cars go into Parc Fermé and the teams are allowed to change like-for-like parts if they suggest there's a problem with one of them. I don't consider that to be Parc Fermé. I consider that to be sort of an open park rather than a closed park, if you can take it out.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, I feel like this red flag rule, it just gives them way too much of an advantage. I mean, you're able to change tires under red flag. I mean, it's a really big advantage.
Well, obviously one guy who was very unhappy throughout all of that went to see the stewards because of the penalty that he picked up, obviously not for changing parts during the pit lane, but indeed for his pit lane entry originally, was Lewis Hamilton. He was the race leader. He eventually finished today down in P7. Let's hear from the man who still leads the championship, but is not a happy guy at the end of the Italian Grand Prix.
Hey Lewis, you were absolutely bossing that race and then it all kind of unravelled in front of you. Kind of what went through your mind when you heard about the penalty?
Definitely wasn't too happy, but you know, it is what it is. I went to see the stewards just to double check, and they had good footage. There was signs saying the pit lane was closed, and I didn't really see them. So ultimately, partly my fault, and then obviously the team asked us to stop. So I think just collectively we didn't do a great job there. And congratulations to Pierre. I think that's an amazing result, considering he was dropped from the top team, from the what do you call it? The
senior team, Red Bull.
Yeah, Red Bull. Unfairly, I think it's been really good for him to build up and build confidence and get a fantastic result today. So huge congrats to him.
And I know you're a racer at heart, so was it quite nice at least to be battling through the field, trying to get what you could out of the race?
Yeah, no, definitely. I was giving it everything. I mean, the first part sucked, the 26 seconds behind the last car. Oh God, that felt like I was in no man's land. But really, really grateful for the points that I got in the end. And yeah, I'd move on to the next one and give it my best. But up until then, I think I'd done a really, really good job. Start was perfect, and both starts I think were pretty perfect. But you know, today wasn't meant to be the day.
Right, hard luck, see you, Magellan. Thanks.
It was amazing to actually have the pleasure of watching Lewis Hamilton fighting through the field at a Grand Prix, but I know one man who won't take any pleasure from having to watch Lewis fight through the field. Toto Wolff, not the day I know that you guys wanted from the Italian Grand Prix.
A lost race for Mercedes, but a victory for all of Formula One. I think it is so refreshing to see the podium and the young guys fighting in front. And you know, I looked at the podium and it was great. They all deserved it. Their teams made the right calls. They drove very well. The battle for the victory was good, and seeing them up there is very good news for the sport.
It really was. It was a fantastic run to the end, and nobody could begrudge any one of those three drivers their place on the podium. I want to talk though about Mercedes' day today, because obviously it didn't quite go to plan. The call for Lewis to come into the pits, was it a call the team made? Was it Lewis's own decision to come in? How did that actually unfold?
It was a very weird sequence of events, because there was a car parked to the right with a single yellow. And 10 or so seconds later, the safety car was deployed. Highly unusual. In a normal circumstance, you deploy a safety car if a Formula One car is in 1,000 Lego bits in some corner. But that wasn't the case. It was even, you know, they could have pushed it back easily. Or you deploy a virtual safety car for such a situation. So a safety car was deployed, don't know why, and at the same time the pit lane was closed. And we as a team inside, we don't know that the pit lane is closed. We are all concentrating for the stop, bring the mechanics out, the engineers are turned towards the pit lane. And then one of our engineers back at base spotted on page 4 of the FIA communication system that it says pit lane closed. We don't see any of the orange crosses on the outside that say you can't enter. There is no red light that we could have seen. So very, very unlucky. And Lewis, you know, these signs on the exit, yellow or orange crosses, not blinking. You as a driver, you see the car on the right, you're just about to pit, you can't see. But the penalty is what it is. I think we need to look at the sequence of events and discuss with the spotting director and with the stewards how can we improve such a situation.
Do you need something maybe as simple as just a light on the pit wall, that as soon as the pit lane's closed, a light would come on so that it's, as you say, it's an immediate signal that pit lane is closed? Similar for the drivers, if there's a red light at pit exit, for example, they know they can't leave pit exit. Just something that's an immediate flash.
You know, I think this funny crosses on the outside, they should be red, first of all. Maybe they should be blinking because the driver has his mind already onto the pit stop. And then at the pit lane entry, like we have had for bloody 50 years, put a damn red light that's red. So the driver comes and says, there's a red light. Well, then you don't enter. Why make things complicated if they can be easy?
Let's finish on a positive, though. As you say, a great day for Formula One. Top 3 drivers all absolutely loving it on the podium today. Gasly's had an horrible year or so. Carlos absolutely coming through to the fore. Lance, brilliant to see him up there, of course, for Racing Point. That you and Lawrence, obviously very good friends, and the relationship there. So great podium.
Yeah, fantastic. I obviously know Lance very well, and he really deserved to be there. It's his second podium. He's been on the front row here in Monza, so that is a track that suits him. And for the others, congratulations. I mean, Alpha Tauri, previously Toro Rosso, had a win here with Seb, so it seems to be going well for them too. And for Carlos, it was overdue, to be there. He was on the podium already, but I think for McLaren, like a fantastic race, and seeing these 3 teams up there, well deserved.
Thanks so much for coming on, Toto. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much. As Toto pointed out, actually, for each driver, their second visit to the podium today.
Yeah, second visit. I didn't even think of that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Gasly got the podium last year.
Yep.
And a win now here.
And Gasly and Sainz, the last time they were on the podium for their first podium, they were on together. Same thing today. Lance Stroll, as Toto pointed out, has been on the front row here at Monza, loves this track, always goes well here. He went brilliantly well today. P3 for him at the flag. Delighted to be on the podium.
Delighted?
Yeah, I'm really happy. It's just a bad start, a bad second start. There was no grip on that P2 box. I had a lot of wheel spin, so I fell back to like 6th, I think it was, and then I just fought my way back to 3rd, and yeah, it was a great effort. I think the win slipped away from us today, though. We had an opportunity to win it.
It seemed like you had a great car underneath you, some great overtakes out there. Did you just feel alive out there?
I felt I had the pace, but Pierre drove a great race. Deserved the win today.
And how much satisfaction can you take from a good result, hopefully for the rest of the season?
We just got to keep pushing on. That's all we can do.
Great stuff. Thanks, Lance.
Interesting to hear the frustrations in Lance Stroll there. Perhaps a little asleep on the restart, do we think, or just playing it a little cautiously with the lighter fuel load into turn 1?
Yeah, I mean, like Lando said, I mean, I didn't even think of that. You know, you're used to doing a start with heavy fuel, different tires on. You know, I don't know if some teams had the same tires that they had on the actual start, but like he said, he didn't. He had harder tires and a lighter car. So for sure that's going to change your launch procedure, which they're not used to practicing. So yeah, I'm not sure what happened, if he just got caught off guard there, or if he just wasn't used to starting like that.
Well, there we go. Lance Stroll, P3, in second place today, and so close to his first Formula One win. He put everything into it, just came up short. Carlos Sainz, what a great day. Second in the Italian Grand Prix.
Carlos, at some points I thought I'd be standing here talking to you as a race winner. It was so close, wasn't it?
It was very close. Obviously, congrats to Pierre. 4 tenths away from a first win is it has to have a sweet and sour feeling, I guess, with this P2, especially because today we were really, really quick. I mean, the way we managed to dominate the midfield in the first part of the race, then the safety car came out, and suddenly I knew Lewis had a penalty, or we will get a penalty, so I was virtually P1 on the race. Then the red flag came out, and I tell you, that was probably the angriest moment of my life, because I knew I was missing out on a potentially leading the race. But even with a used tire going through the field in the last few laps, was good fun, and nearly catching Pierre, obviously nearly, but happy with that.
And still your best result in Formula One, so you've got to be happy, and the win's going to come, isn't it?
I hope so. In the future, the first win will come. Today, I felt like we definitely earned it with the pace we had, but you know, there's situations, there's ways that sometimes life goes that doesn't want to happen. One thing I can tell you is that today I didn't leave anything on the table. I mean, you should have I was pushing as hard as I could, and I felt like I did the best I could to win the race today, and I will be back home to sleep knowing that I didn't leave anything in the table.
When you got that message from Tom to say no mistakes and you said I'm going for the win, you were having nothing else, were you?
Of course, I had to. I mean, especially because I felt not robbed, but a bit like after a red flag, I felt like that should be me. And I was catching 2/10 a lap, not a lot, especially because my tires were a bit used, so I couldn't use the new tire to exploit it. And I had to go through traffic, and that wasted my tires a bit more. But I was focused, and I was determined to try and get in the DRS of Pierre and then battle it out. I just could in the last 2 laps, but didn't quite make it happen by very little.
So, congrats,
Thank
man,
you.
Pete.
Thank you.
There is a guy who has given everything today, Carlos Sainz. I think a little exhausted after that, and you can see why, gave it everything. What about the guy, though? Top step at the podium for the first time we've had a French winner since 1996. Pierre Gasly. Chapeau, mon ami.
Pierre, Formula One Grand Prix winner, how does that sound?
It sounds fucking amazing, to be fair. I struggle to realize what's happening. I know it's been such a crazy ride in the last 18 months. And yeah, today we're Italian Grand Prix race winner, and I just want to thank all the people who helped me to make that possible. And I mean, it was unexpected. We just focused on ourselves the whole time since last year, improving day by day. And to have such an outcome in Italy for an Italian team, and also for myself, I slept home all the weekend. I'm living 30 kilometers from here now. Feels almost like home, and it's my first F1 win is unbelievable.
Is that the key to wins then? Stay at home?
Probably. I should have moved earlier in Milan. No, it's crazy. I think it was a difficult race, to be fair, because after the red flag, we had a good start. We moved to P2, but then after that, Carlos hunting me down for I don't know how many laps, slowly closing. And we know when we're leading here, you don't get a tow. You're slower in the straights. I just gave everything I had, and the last few laps were difficult. I had no more tire left; they were completely gone. But I just kept pushing, and the feeling when I crossed the line was. I have no words to put on that.
How nerve-wracking was it leading a Grand Prix?
I felt good because the car was great. I didn't have anyone in front of me. I could just focus on my own driving. I was in my own world, just trying to take one corner at a time and really nail everything. So it just felt good. Honestly, if I could be in that position more often, I would take that. But yeah, obviously, when I crossed the line, I don't know what to say, honestly. It's just an amazing feeling.
Congratulations. Enjoy tonight.
Thanks.
What an amazing day for Pierre Gasly. What an amazing drive. And if you want to know how much it meant, then his radio call as he crossed the line will tell you everything that you need to know.
What did he say?
It was all going so well, man. Never mind. You could see from his reaction exactly what that meant to him. And I think just from watching that joy overflowing for Pierre Gasly. What a moment. You're never going to get to win your first Grand Prix twice.
Man, it's the race of his life. I mean, he's winning with an AlphaTauri, It's a mid-level team to win a race with an AlphaTauri. It's an amazing race for the team, for him. It's the race of his life.
Yeah.
Like I said, he was doing the race of his life, pole position lap after lap, from the red flag to the finish.
Absolutely sensational. And after the year that he's had, the turmoil he's been through, sensational. Should we take a look at the championship standings at the end of the Italian Grand Prix? I think we should. Lewis Hamilton didn't have the best of days out there, but it's still a P7, which means he still gets points to add to his championship tally. 164 now for him, with Valtteri Bottas now second again on 117 after Max Verstappen's retirement. Lance Stroll, with his podium today, leaps up into fourth place in the drivers' standings ahead of Lando Norris, Alex Albon, Leclerc in seventh, Gasly now up to eighth, ahead of Carlos Sainz and Daniel Ricciardo, rounding out the top 10. Sainz and Ricciardo at level on points. It just shows you how much of a difficult season it had been for Carlos Sainz up to that point. Then it's Perez and Ocon, Vettel and Hülkenberg, Fiat, Giovinazzi, Magnussen, Latifi, Raikkonen, Grosjean and Russell. In the constructors' standings, it is, of course, Mercedes ruling the route, but let's see what this has done in that tense and tight battle in the midfield. Red Bull Racing 158. McLaren now jumped to 98 points after that double points score today. Racing Point on 82 in fourth. Renault now fifth. Ferrari 10 points behind Renault. And look at that, just 14 points ahead of AlphaTauri at the end of the Italian Grand Prix. Well, Pietro, what a day, what a race, what a joy to see not just a different race winner, not just a new race winner, but after such a contest and such a podium.
No, it was unbelievable race. I mean, after the red flag, everything was just mixed up. You had 3 different teams on the podium. That's what racing should be all about. That's how Formula One should be, honestly, as a racing driver, but also looking as a fan from racing, watching the race. I wish every single race of the season was like this.
And how does a team like Ferrari pick up from this? Home race, one of the most qualifying, the worst qualifying they'd had since 1984, and then a race with a double DNF.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. I mean, they have to just try to execute as much as they can. I'm not sure how much performance they can pull out of the car till now to the rest of the season, how much more they can improve on that end. But it's just kind of execute and minimize mistakes. And I'm excited for the Mugello race. I mean, watching the cars there, it's going to be like Arrabbiata 1, 2. It's going to be fast.
Well, this is it, isn't it? It is an unknown for everybody. Mugello in the Tuscan countryside. Can't wait for that, right?
Yeah, unbelievable. Amazing food there, too. That's a plus. But, yeah, it's going to be a very fast race, super high-speed corners, and looking forward to it.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for coming on, mate. It seems every time you come on the post-race show, we have an amazing Grand Prix. You need to come back next time again. Pietro, thank you so much. To Rosanna and Sam, thank you so much for your input and your insight. As always, folks, thank you for tuning in. Without you, there is no show. From now, though, from Pietro, from me, from Monza, on a day of Pierre Gasly, a race winner for the very first time. We'll see you later.